Do you think that a person from Cuba could understand a Spanish speaker if they pronounce
Yeah.
the S's wrong?
Um,
It's the other way around.
Because when you're in Italy, they always say like, "Oh, Spanish is so easy; it's just Italian with extra S's."
Ah.
So it's like, and they
uh,
say that there is a version that where it's not as present. It's like, what's the point then? Welcome, everybody, to a new exciting episode of the Connected by Language podcast, the only show that finds the most dedicated language learners out there and tries to learn from their craft. I'm your host, Michele, and I'm joined by my co host.
Michelle.
So, for the people that have been joining in for the first time, maybe it's a little bit of a nice thing to do if we just tell us a little bit of who we are, what languages do we speak, and what we're all about.
Well, of course. So I'm Michelle. I'm from Germany. I speak German, English, French, and Spanish. And I'm a language education specialist at Tandem.
Ooh, what is Tandem?
So Tandem is a language exchange app where you can meet people from all over the world. You can practice languages with them, either one-on-one, in conversations, in written conversations or video calls, or in group live learning in so-called language parties.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I've been using myself Tandem to meet people from Japan and refine the Japanese skills, but there's so many different languages on the app. I think like more than 300 languages, and a lot of people come into Tandem to learn their fair share of, Spanish or like French. And you've been, for the people that have meeting you for the first time, you've been pretty involved with a lot of the differences between Spanish, if I'm recall correctly, right?
That's true. So I have been to Latin America several times. And first time I was there, I had just taken a course in Spain before. So I could not use any of the vegetable words
Okay.
I needed actually, because all the vegetables were called differently in Latin America. So that was a hard shock for me.
And it's very funny because during this episode, we found out that there are a lot of very different versions of Spanish between regions, but they kind of sort of understand each other. Well, today we're going to put an extra one into the list because today we're taking a little bit of a trip into the little island of Cuba. Are you ready to explore Cuba and to see what this language brings to the table in the sea of other Spanish versions?
Absolutely.
Yes, and not only we're gonna do that, we're gonna also explore someone here that not only is an expert on Cuban language, but also has a lot of things to share about interesting ways to learn languages and the very important art of the accent. So, without any further ado, welcome to the show, Guglielmo.
Hi, nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me.
It's so nice to meet you, and I cannot wait to find all of the different elements that make your story special. And for the people that are interested to know what the hell is going on in Cuba, what's Cuba in Spain? I don't think a lot of people first instance of Spanish would be the Cuban version. So it's very interesting to see how things develop. But before we start, actually, for people that are listening in, would you tell us a little bit about your own personal journey and what you're all about?
Yes, for sure. Um, yes, to start, so I was born in Cuba, '94, but I grew up in Germany.
Mhm.
So with 10 years, I came to Germany. And so I have family from Italy. So I grew up with Italian, German, and Spanish. So I was just like mixing or juggling with three languages, three cultures at the same time. Um, with that comes a lot of responsibility and also a lot of, how you say, like mixing up things. Like I could not understand things in Italian in the beginning. Also, especially because my family was from South Italy, so they have a different dialect for like Naples, Sicily. So it's not that standard Italian. So it took me really long for it, and always had to adapt new things like new style, new way of speaking. And yeah, that was the thing that kind of give me kind of motivation to learn more about cultures and languages. Yes, and
Yeah.
from then on, I just keep going, and yeah, so like it's
Nice.
worth all good
Oh,
for that.
sorry.
Oh, no,
It's already a lot of different cultures mixed up together. So I think for a lot of people that don't have this sort of background, it would be very interesting to know something about your ability to perceive these three languages. Like you mentioned that for you, the Italian side was a little bit difficult, but like was it difficult for you to adapt all of the three languages as a whole at the same time, or eventually did it come naturally to be able to switch between the three?
So like so to be exact, I came to Germany in 2004, and in the beginning it was really hard because, so you can imagine, in my home, so in my place, I was speaking Spanish with my mother, and also Italian with my stepfather. So in school, so I was learning German. So like, so basically I was mixing up things when just going to another place. So when I'm meeting to my family of my stepfather, so we're all speaking Italian. So I was a lot of listening to get what I actually speaking. And since, like I said, they were from the south, so they had a lot of dialects. So not only I had to understand standard Italian, but also dialects from villages, to really grasp what do they really mean. But then I would say, like, after 6 or 7 months, it came all natural to me because I could have switched between German, Italian, and Spanish, and I think by that it gave me more like opportunity to understand the difference between the three cultures. Like when outside I grew up in South Germany, like Stuttgart, near Stuttgart. Basically, like they also have a different dialect in German, so it was always nice to listen to it. And since there were also a lot of Italians in Stuttgart, that also helped me out more, like to get more also the standard Italian, because meeting people from different part of Italy, living in Germany, that helps me a lot for that. Yeah, but then it all came naturally. So I would say after that I was able to juggle the different languages and to switch between them. But it was for sure at work, a hard work for the beginning on, because like I said, it was not only the language but also the culture. So I came in November, so it was very cold. In Cuba, we don't have snow. We don't have this kind of things, like we only have
We don't have
beaches
that in
and
Italy where I grew up
yeah.
as well. So it's like, imagine going all the way from Cuba.
Yeah.
So exactly, so like those were the other effects. So I had to adapt to it, and yeah, I mean, I remember like when I landed in Düsseldorf airport, and I only had my, how you call it in Spanish, like chancletas, like yeah, that's it. Because I thought, okay, I'm going to another country. I think that will work out. Like same climate like in Cuba, but yeah. So that was my first. Okay, I really need to buy other clothes. Like because
Very
I won't survive that.
Very foolish. I would do the same mistake as well. Like when I came here in Berlin and it's like much later than 10, I also think, oh, I'm gonna be like light jacket and everything is gonna go well.
Just to help us understand, chaquetas, is it the shoes or the jacket or?
No, it's like more like, yeah, the shoes. Yeah, the shoes
shoes,
that yeah.
Okay.
Like sandals. Can you call it like sandals?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
more like a version of it. Yeah.
And it's funny because Germany is known for sandals.
Yeah.
So what's wrong with that?
No, I just knew another Spanish word, so here we're back to the different Spanish words for sandals. I didn't know the Cuban version.
Already off, like the only first Spanish already different. So
Yeah.
to whoever said that Spanish dialects sound the same, this is completely wrong now. And it's interesting about dialects because people don't really consider the German dialects. It's something that, like, whenever people think of learning German, they think of the specific German, which is not the same for Italian. Everybody that comes to speak Italian, they're like, oh, I want to learn this part of Italian, but that Italian is very different from the north and very different from the south, which it is. Don't get me wrong. I still don't understand some accents. And it's very interesting to see how it gets globalized when you come into a foreign country, because it's not as easy to get people from all over the place into a small community. But Germany, the different dialects of Germany, I think they should be explored more. Maybe we will talk about it later, maybe about what the actual accents of Germany sound like, but it's something very interesting that not a lot of people tend to think.
Yeah, and before we dive more into the whole dialect topic, also for the Spanish version, maybe one more point about the whole thing of growing up trilingually. Like, how did those three languages shape how you saw the world as a child? Like, at which point did you realize, well, those are really different cultures, and how did it influence you?
So like in a way they influenced me that understanding more about like Roman language and culture. So understanding that Italian it has a lot of similarity with Cuban culture, not so many, but it has a little things. So we would say as a Cuban, it will be easier to assimilate to Italian culture than to German. And so that helps more to understand, so to get along with Italian, but also then with other people from um, like say Spain, Portugal, and also even Greece, you know. So because the kind of way mentality is kind of like Cuban, you know, not 100%, but more than I would say the German. Um,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. And it's very
that's
interesting because there was a study recently that I've read about the overall level of extrovert and introvert levels between countries in the European Union. And technically, Italian is considered an introvert country. It is
mm,
low introvert. It is not as introverted as some other places in the northern side, but compared to Spain, it is a lot, like a lot different. And I think that could be for some people a little bit of a misinformation that Italy is like this super mega extrovert places, kind of similar to Spain and Portugal. But I'd argue, at least coming from my own side and visiting people from Spain and Portugal, that yes, we are definitely heading towards that part. But it's a lot more introvert than you think, specifically when you go to the north side of Italy.
Mm.
Because you, if I remember correctly, you mentioned that the dialect that you learned was from the southern side, and that's the
yes,
party. That's where the parties are. That's where the very animated and lively people are. So it's definitely
exactly.
very very strong difference, and that is something that people should know about. If you're going to Milan expecting everybody to be super lively, you will get those people for sure, but expect also a lot of introvertness. And of course, people have their own personalities, right? You can't just say that this place is good, this place is bad, this place is loud, this place is silent. But it is a little bit of a trend that you can expect if you're visiting Italy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this trilingual background is very interesting when you look at it from the perspective of growing up. But I would love to know, now that a lot of time has passed, like, do you think that what do you think are the ways that this trilingual background helped you encounter and understand other cultures now that you're an adult?
So it helped me in a way that um, so I could perceive people mentalities, but also the way of thinking.
Hmm.
Since I was myself in like three different cultures, um, two cultures different than mine. So putting myself in other people's shoes to understand the point of view and also understand what are the values, what are the differences, but also similarities, and also in like in conversation to seek more to understand first, and yeah, so just basically to wait until people finalize their thoughts. You know, like in language itself, like for example, like in German language, you really need to listen carefully because the sentence structure is different than from Spanish or Italian. So that helps more in that. Also, similarities with other cultures, for example, like Danish people, Swedish. So that they like have similarities with German language. So that helped me to understand what are the varieties of cultures that are in a common sense. Like, so if I speak German, I know it will be easier for me to understand people from Nordic countries if I wouldn't speak, if I only speak Spanish. So, you know, since I already know the German culture, so it's easier to get to navigate those other cultures as well. So, Spanish helped me understand Latin America more, but also people from Spain, Italy, and but also, yeah, so like, more like this kind of in the cultural understanding to understand more about what is behind that and why people do that, what is the history between of the country, and why people see things the way they do. And yeah, so all those aspects that enriches life, and also the beauty in for of every country and culture, language as well.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because you have a lot of coverage when it comes to Europe and a lot of the America side of things. But I think it would be interesting for you. I don't know if you're already picking up on any sort of Asian language that exists, because that would allow you to basically cover the entire world, kind of all the cultures. So I don't know if you ever got the idea of learning something like a Chinese or a Japanese or
Yeah.
I. But I think that's like the trifecta when it comes to understanding different languages. You have the Nordic side, you have the Latin side, and you probably also need the Asian side. But it's very nice to be able to kind of figure out things immediately, because a lot of people don't get that sort of luxury, and they have to work a lot harder before they can even understand a little bit of a tiny percentage of how other cultures communicate and think. So it's very, very nice to see the sorry, the
The ping
distracting
sound in the
the
background.
big distracting, but yeah, it's a very powerful asset, and if people are interested in learning a lot of languages, this is, I think, one of the greatest advantages that this sort of career path or like a skill path will provide.
Exactly. Don't know if you want to tell us if you have already had some ideas about Asian languages. We didn't let you.
Yes. No, but I want to tell something different, because it is very crucial to understand where I come from. Because in the beginning, when I came first to Germany, I not only that I grew up in different cultures like Italian and German, but I was also like in a intercultural setting. So because in South Germany we have something called Vorbereitungsklasse, basically. Basically, all foreigners come to one place in school, and they have one German teacher who teaches German. So we have people from different parts of the world, like Turkey, China, Japan, US, South Africa, everything, So I was mixed up in this intercultural setting from the beginning on. That also helped me, and definitely one of the key factors for me to understand, also be part of that the cultural setting mode, I would say. And yes, and I did learn Asian language, especially Mandarin Chinese.
That is a tough one. That is a very
It
tough
is.
one. I did 1 year, and it was very
Yeah.
yeah. I did
And
1
I'm
year.
still learning, So as a
Good luck with that. I can just say that. Good luck with learning Mandarin.
And coming back from Chinese Mandarin to to actually Spanish and Cuban Spanish. So let's dive a bit deeper into the Cuban version of Spanish. What makes it different and unique of all the versions of Spanish that are out there?
So first of all, it's like we in the Caribbean, so we have a rhythmic. So Cuba is known for music, and also so the way of lifestyle. So we have a lot of things, a melody in way things say. We have unique words and expressions like hacer que volar. This is something very unique in Cuban culture, but also we have a lot of there's a linguistic thing. It's I don't know how it is called, but we omit the S. So I think also we omit the S, and also we soften a lot of things. So like say mejor or something like we don't like bueno, like we don't pronounce certain consonants that makes difficult for Spanish speakers, also people who from other countries. And also one thing very unique is that we have also influence from Yoruba culture in the language itself. So from African country. So it is a thing that you really need to be living in Cuba, or unless you have some Cuban friends to really get to know it, because otherwise it is hard. I admit it, and not even in Cuba itself, like different regions, they might not understand each other because they have a different way of speaking in it. So yeah, so this is a thing, and we let it flow. We are not so focused on that structure of grammar, but we just like, yeah, we flow like Cubans. We have a good time. Acera que hola. All this thing, like we're dancing. We have a good time. So and
But it
that why we might speak so fast that it is difficult for people coming from Spain or people who are learning Spanish. And I think, yeah, I got Spanish in high school. Now I'm going to Cuba. I'm going to speak with locals. And then you find out, damn, I need to relearn. And yeah, that's the thing that makes difficult. But once you're there, then you will see a different part of culture that I never know before.
At least you can bank on the fact that they're not going to be super strict on the errors that you make. Like, do you think that a person from Cuba could understand a Spanish speaker if they pronounce
Yeah.
the S's strong?
Sorry. I think usually it's the other way around. I mean, if you pronounce the S that's really there, then you should be able to understand it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's funny because when you're in Italy, they always say like, oh, Spanish is so easy. It's just Italian with extra S's. So it's like, and they say that there is a version that where it's not as present. It's like, what's the point then? I think I just so if it's Spanish, if it's Italian with S's and then you take out the S's, that's just Italian again. So that's the point, I guess. And I guess that's easy then. So it's I got confused for a second. It's like, oh, did I say something?
Now I know where it gets from.
Yeah, but
No, but
Yeah.
no, but it's not only the consonants omitting s's or something, but also unique expressions. That
of course.
like la vida es un cachumbambe. You don't get it. This is only expression in Cuba, and also things that.
For the people that don't know Spanish at all, could you tell us what?
So it's like that means basically life, like la vida es como un cachumbambe, is living. Basically means life is like a roller coaster. So that's what it means. So
just again,
things like that.
Just again, a different word for roller coaster, which I also don't know.
Yes.
Just for a different
you already hear it.
So I think us two speaking Spanish would be really hard to understand. Each other.
And I'm just here for. I want to watch it. I want to watch you guys speak Spanish, and I'm just understanding like what's going on here. Pollo, that I know that one.
Pollo.
I know that one. I know that one.
But yeah, no, but also thing is in Cuba we listen a lot of salsa music, and they have a lot of even in the vocabulary you have songs that are referring to it in a language we're speaking. So sometimes you also need to know the song, so like old song from Cuba, so because some people will just use expression from that also thing.
So maybe we would each understand each other on the dance floor then.
That's for sure.
Dancing salsa is something that is international.
But Cuban salsa.
Yeah. I know
This
that.
because that's also different. Good, because
yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, I need to get my dancing skills ready because I don't know how to prepare for that either. So it's interesting because you mentioned a lot of differences between like Cuban Spanish and normal Spanish. But since you've been into a school that is made for foreigners, you probably have seen ways where Spanish would be taught. So have you ever found like your Cubans? Well, actually, this is a repeat for a question, but I'm going to re-ask anyways. Have you ever found your Cuban Spanish clashing with how Spanish is specifically taught in or used in other places in Europe? Not just like the way that the languages are different, but the way that they're even presented or taught in school or by parents or whichever the case.
I mean, in school, like I tend to go to some Spanish classes just because I wanted to speak Spanish, not because I had to. And of course, they were mainly teaching Spanish from Spain. Sometimes also from Latin America, but mostly was from Spain. So of course, like in way of didactic, or it's in English, it was more like, let's get the rules, the grammar rules in Spanish, and even there you see the differences, because in Cuba you would not learn like that. And of course, there are different grammar rules in Spanish, also from Spain, than Latin American Spanish. And basically, I would say like people were more like teaching to speak right, correct, than actually speaking. Because when you go to Cuba, you just speak, and it doesn't matter if you make exactly, you let it flow. And even if you make mistake, people will just understand you. But if you're so much focused on, do I get it right? Do I get the right verb? What is para? What is por? What is subjunctivo? What is that? Do I, all those things, little things that make things more difficult than it is. But I also believe that it only make it difficult because you're thinking in a foreign language. So basically, you think in your native language, because like the por and para, if you think in German, of course it will be difficult to get it right. But if you think only in Spanish, it will be easier because you can just explain it only using that language. There's a thing between translation and actually using the language. The moment you translate, things get difficult because there are not many words in one language that actually substitute the other. Yeah, exactly. There's not a one-to-one translation. You have to understand the context. So I would say the teacher was made more for teaching correctness, and because I have to write abitur or whatever, and you have to make sure that you have the right way of the version of speaking of writing. But it's actually not the speaking or thing that teaches you in Latin America or in Cuba, for example. Like, so this where I find myself even having some difficulties, because I also taught Spanish, like as a tutor, and when I was explaining things, they didn't get it, or like they think, no, we did it differently. But are you sure it's like that? So and even there, I was questioning myself. Okay, but I did that way. So, but why are they teaching different? So, is there a European way of teaching, or what is that? So yeah, those were one of the moments where I found myself like mixing or clashing out the different ways of teaching Spanish.
Yeah, and it's also not super easy because, of course, in the beginning you need to translate because otherwise you would not get a word.
Yeah, you
But
can't
then
just understand immediately things.
exactly, it doesn't work immediately. But then at some point you need, as you said, to try to stay in that foreign language and think in that foreign language to better understand the rules behind it and the culture behind it. So
And coming from like yourself, like a language specialist, or like a teaching, how much time do you think a person that is trying to learn a language should start even considering thinking in that language instead of doing the thinking in the foreign? Is it like a year thing where like if you consistently do it for 1 to 2 years, you can get to that level? Or is it something that you can achieve relatively fast? Or is it something that's like super mega long term?
So it can be super fast if you're fully immersed. So that makes really the difference. If you live in the country and you learn that language, it can happen after 3 months.
3 months?
That you just start grasp yourself, start thinking in the language. But yeah, of course, if it's your subject at school or university and you do it for 1 hour a week, then it will take you years.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think not all the countries have that sort of like. There's definitely some transitions that are a lot easier than others to do. Like, for example, if I were to do Spanish from Italians, I think it wouldn't take me that long because the mentalities are the same. But I would assume for someone like doing from Spanish to German, they have completely different systems. It's completely like difficult to do that jump to one-to-one jump. One of the important things that this sort of jump between two mentalities also entails is the way that you speak, specifically the accent. And I'm very interested to know more about the Cuban accent because, like, since you've been in Germany for so long and you have so many different languages, if I were me, I would kind of blend in all my accents together into one incomprehensible mess. That's what happened to me with English and Italian. They just, blah. That's what happened. But in your case, do you consciously try to preserve your Cuban accent even after living in Germany for so long, or it is some sort of something that cannot be changed, or like other elements that make it difficult to adapt?
No, I would say I'm preserving my Cuban accent because it's part of my identity and I like it. And when it comes to accent, this is my personal view. I like to learn a language, and I like to be sound native like. So if I'm learning French, I want to sound like a French speaker. So I will make sure that I practice enough pronunciation so I can be perceived as a native or native like, So, but it's a personal thing that you don't need to. But for me, it's a nice thing to have, because when you are perceived as native like, there are less barriers. You get more deeper into cultural slave, because people assimilate with you. Okay, or you speak like me. Okay, now I can open up more in a different way. I mean, so that's how I see it. Cuban accent, especially with my family. So even with friends, I speak Cuban Spanish, unless it's mostly like with Latin American people. So I can just speak out like Cuban. Then okay, we are Latinos. We speak like that. So Colombians speak like that. Cubans speak like that. Dominicans speak like that. So I definitely like to preserve it. And also, while listening a lot of music, Cuban music, and dancing salsa and all that songs and dances, it actually it never stops. And since I'm constantly listening to music, traditional Cuban music, it always reminds me, okay, that I have to preserve my culture and my accent, so that it's not goes away. So that's the thing.
And how does it influence the way of your expressions? Like speaking several languages, do they also change somehow?
To be honest, in when I do my A levels, it really mixing. I was mixing it. I was having written accents in French, and I was mixing with Spanish. So like when I was writing about so thing like that. So in the beginning it really mixed a lot, but then I had to think in a way of, okay, when I'm in a Spanish mode, I really should focus only on that and train myself think and act like a Cuban. So when I'm speaking German, yeah, when I'm speaking German, think and act like a German from the south. I'm German south, like Schwäbisch, like more like that. So to get more the identity of where I'm from. So when I'm speaking French, since I learned French from France, so I want to sound like French people. So I think and act like French. So so I would never say, I would never tell to French native speakers to slow down for me. No, I say, no, don't slow for me. It doesn't matter if I'm not that far, but it it triggers me, and it forces me to go beyond that. So even in languages where I'm actually a beginner, so okay, don't slow down. I just want to grasp the natural environment of it. So basically, it's more like actively forcing myself to be part of that culture, that people surrounding for that moment, and
It's kind of you're shifting your identity in that sense, in that moment.
Yeah, a lot of people have this sort of shift also personality-wise. Like for example, for myself, when I speak in Italian, I'm a lot more reserved. I'm more shy because that's like the type of person I am. But when I speak it in English, and I have like the American accent, I feel myself as like a Wolf of Wall Street, kind of like very loud, very confident. Like, hey, give me some guns over here, man. So that sort of way that you kind of can create your idealized version of yourself behind the language, and kind of pick up some of the pickups, because whenever I speak French, when I was living in France, I was feeling a little bit more French like, and the way that they perceive things and they judge things, but at the same time, this doesn't always happen. It's very hard, because when I'm trying to do some German, I keep reading words like a French person would do, and that's annoying. So like kudos for everybody that can force themselves to kind of change their entire character so fast between languages, because I am struggling with it, and I'm jealous because I wish I could do it for German, but no, I guess I cannot do that. I'm gonna keep reading words like French, and that's not how it's supposed to be. So so like you mentioned that you changed like your expression style between um like languages, but also does it change your identity like when you switch between German, Italian, and Spanish and Cuban Spanish, or is it just like expression? Is it just like um surface level in the types of word that you use and when to use it, but or is it also like more deep, like a personality change when you speak different languages?
Let me tell you something. For example, when I was in Paris, I met Cubans living in France.
Okay.
And these people were speaking French, but with Cuban accent.
Mhm.
And when I was speaking to them, I was like, you can just speak Spanish to me because it's not a big difference. So for them, it was hard to get the French accent, even though they were living in France. So for me, it was someone like I'm speaking to a Cuban. Even if you're speaking French words, but it sounds Cuban to me because they act the way of, all this movement, all this flow, putting the French culture. It, it doesn't it doesn't look good, But
Yeah.
I would say like for sure, like when I speak in German, definitely like it sounds like okay, more disciplined, um more forwarded, more punctual. I mean, it's thing that
But are you though? That's the thing. That's the thing that I'm asking. Is that you may sound more punctual, but not everybody can get to that level. But then, are we actually more punctual?
Like, how do you sound punctual?
I don't know. You sound more precise. Everything is much more in line. There's a lot of more like all of the little section of a phrase are analyzed more and more, like more in depth. You tend to like. This is not about German, by the way. Only it's a whole different types of speaking of taking every single part and kind of not like trying to understand exactly what each phrase in the word is. Imagine speaking legalese, like speaking in legal terms. That's what some people do when they try to be more punctual or more like
Okay,
direct.
okay.
But some people can act like it, but
Yeah.
they don't actually follow through
Yeah.
because it's hard. It's like it's very hard. So that's what your example was an interesting, because you find people that speak French but they were acting or like they were still. You can tell that they were still the Cuban person that they were in the beginning, and being able to change the personality like that, it's a very important tool, but also very extremely hard. I just want to
okay,
reiterate on that.
okay, for German. So since like I was 10 when I came here, so I mean I cannot show up late. So
Yeah.
because every time you show up late, every you show up late in school, you had to explain yourself why you did it. So basically, but it could be as a good training because either you're preparing yourself, okay, no, I'm gonna be late. Now I'm preparing how to say what to say, because they were expecting from us, if you're late, you have to explain yourself. So every time. So to have not lifted shame again, you just be punctual and everything's fine, So you learn it from the beginning on, not to be.
That's a very strange lesson to learn. But in general, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like you already know the rules and you're adapting them. Not everybody can do that. You'd be surprised how many people, even that have been into certain countries for long, they tend to have their own ways of doing things and not necessarily adapt with
Yeah.
language. So I'm just saying, this is not as natural as it may sound.
Yeah, but I think like there's also a thing. Last year I went to Kenya and Tanzania, and the way they perceive time is different than Western countries. So here in Germany or Western countries, time is very like like a fixed point. You have to be there at 6 p.m. You have to be there at 8, 7 a.m. But in Kenya or in Tanzania, it's like more like there's a time frame. Things will happen, but it's not a fixed time. That's why people won't show up on that time because they think there is time. The perceive of time is different. And that's based on different culture from there, like Swahili culture, Bantu languages. So it is different way of perceiving it, and that's why people from Western country perceive them as being unpunctual because they won't show up at 7 p.m. No, 7 p.m. doesn't mean anything to them because they see time as a fluid thing, and not as a fixed thing. So maybe there's also a thing that yeah, I would say that, and Latin Americans definitely do that.
Yeah,
So
exactly. That's what I was trying to get. But I think it's interesting to take this into a little bit of a lesson that people might be like coming from this. Like if let's say there's somebody coming in and he wants to, he's decided to be like, oh, I need to have a neutral accent to make sure that everybody understands me, or I should keep my regional accent or the accent where I'm coming from. So in that situation, what advice would you give learners that are undecided between these two?
I think the most important is just to, if you really want to keep the original accent, if it fits to your personality. I mean, if you feel like you changing yourself for someone or for something, it it won't be. I mean, the most important thing to be authentic. You know, you can have accent, but it's still being authentic as a person, and that's the most important, to have this authenticity, because people believe who you are, how you do it, and not you want someone that you're not. You know. So
Mhm.
I know many people who speak many languages don't have any local accents, but it doesn't matter because they have enrichful and you learn more of them because they're authentic. And actually, that is how I perceive them, because I get to learn like that. But they will try to be someone else, pretend someone else. It feels like it feels like weird, you know. So and when it comes to languages, you should also, I believe that you should also preserve on dialects that you have, because that's a way of diversity, which is yeah. So you should not make fun of people just speaking differently. So like, if I'm from South German, I will speak like Swabian. You know, I should be proud of it. I'm proud of it. So if I know someone from Northern German, they will speak like that. Okay, be proud of it. It is the diversity that enriches all of us, and we all learn from each other. I think that is the most important thing, to be authentic to yourself, and if it fits to you, to your own values. Okay, get the local regional accent. If not, okay, then just sound neutral like you want to. I mean, I know like many teachers, they have lost the local accents. They just speak neutral, like for example, like German teachers from South, like Rivera, for example.
Yeah.
Mostly they just have the neutral German because they teach different students, and of course the language will naturalize. So, but it's fine. Um, as long as you're happy to go back to it, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think those are very, very nice words of encouragement for people making that decision. But I think this sort of situation only comes when someone is learning a lot of different languages back to back. So I think it would be very interesting to learn about more of the very unique ways that can allow you to make that journey a lot smoother. A little birdie told me, if I am correct or not, that you found a very interesting way to connect all of the languages that you learn as some sort of like a chain, right? Like you
Mm.
use a certain language to learn a different language. Is that correct?
Yes. So I'm doing at the moment for Russian. So I'm learning Russian from the French perspective.
Uh-huh.
So I can understand like I'm only using French tools, like a French native speaker, to learn Russian. So why I do that?
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
was about to ask
using
that. That's a very well interesting. Sorry to interrupt. I was about to ask
yeah.
that.
I mean, so my French is advanced, you know. So if I'm advanced in a language, then I should take use of it. So why not using it to learn passively French? Because learning structure, learning explanation and grammar, what anything of how to acquire a new language, and by that actively learning the new tool. You know, you can see like more or less passive active. You know, like
Mhm.
passive learning French, active learning Russian. So you're not mixing things up, because those languages have not so many things in common. So
So
pronunciations were different.
so in your like so if I'm getting this right, like French and Russian don't have any sort of connections at all. You're just using French tools to kind of like read like the rules that are written in French, but you're learning Russian. It's kind of like a way to do exercises on two languages at once, basically, right?
So basically, I'm learning Russian, but using French tools. You know, like basically, there's a book, Asimil. I'm using Asimil. It's a French book, so I'm using it to learn Russian.
Uh-huh.
So everything is explained in French. how to learn Russian. Basically, it's like I would just watch a YouTube video, a guy from France explaining grammar in Russian, or so like, or a Russian speaking living in France that teaches Russian while speaking French, something like that.
And do this type of people within this chain only happen when you have a very good knowledge of one of the two languages? Like you already knew French very, very high level before doing this. So it's not like a technique that you would recommend for someone that doesn't like, that is not, it doesn't have that sort of a high level of a certain language, right?
So like I would say it only works if one thing, the two languages are very not identical. French and Russian are not identical. So the one language has to be really advanced, more B, above B level, B2 level. And the language, it's a A1. So, it could work out if you learn French, Spanish, but French would have to be at least also B level, and Spanish A, because otherwise you will mix up, because Roman language, identical, they will mix up grammar and things like that. So, the more I part the language off from family, the better it is. So, I can use French for learning Mandarin, Chinese, something like that.
I got it. It's very smart. It's very smart.
And you've also described yourself as a grammar lover. What makes grammar enjoyable for you, and how do you make it work for learning? Instead of being boring.
Yeah, I had this one trick from my French teacher in university. She tried to keep us teaching us grammar, but she told us I won't teach you grammar like usually. We won't just go down to grammar points and read what is about, what is subjunctive, what is this, what is that. But basically, we will have already formulated sentences, for example, in French, that already have the grammar rules. So on the other side, you also have the translation in German. We will just go through all these expressions one by one, and we just read it all along. And basically, and she was telling us, what does this mean in German? And then you will have to say in French, and vice versa. Fast, without thinking so much about, what is this rule? What is that? And by that, like doing that exercise, it helped understand that you only need to understand the structure of the grammar point, but you don't need to really in detail, because language is not like, at the end you want to speak with people, no? So if you get it so very fast, your brain won't have time to try and understand how is that subjunctive built, how is that conjugation built, but you understand based on context, and then okay, it works. So basically using grammar as you can see as an architecture of a language. So once you understand that, you can build up on things, and you learn grammar on the go,
So the sentences.
So what?
Sorry.
Yeah.
The sentences you read were not the rules; they were just examples where the rules were applied already, and
Exactly.
you would get it by learning it, kind of like chunks. Like you would not learn the rule behind it, but the chunk, and you would memorize it, and then you would incorporate it, so you would have the rule inside you already.
Exactly.
It's interesting because this sort of technique kind of reminds me of some ways that we used to learn Mandarin, like when the year that we did it, where we're taking, of course, in the Mandarin it's a lot more different because there's like, yes, there are rules, but also like every single character you have to kind of learn it. But the idea that you kind of discover it first and then you trade it with people. It's like, I saw this character and this character also appeared here. It appeared there. So we can kind of connect the dots from there instead of being like, oh, this is the character for whoa, it means I, or this is the character for this, it means that. So it's interesting to see how like can be applied in something as dynamic and so like not character focused as, Latin languages, like you mentioned French. So I think this could be applied to those languages as well, I think. And it's very interesting to see. So, okay. So like, this is a very interesting way to kind of learn grammar, but in your opinion, do you think that diving into this grammar as early as possible helps? Or like, should I first get some other basics first before diving into said grammar?
So I would say also it depends on which language it is, because I think in some languages it's nice to just start to speak from the beginning on and learn grammar on the go. For example, like Arabic. So I'm having like little. Went to Morocco, just learning basics, Moroccan Arabic. I didn't learn any grammar, so I was just speaking to them. So there's no way I cannot go down and look at my phone. Okay, this grammar rule. No, I just learned full sentences and just say it out. If it's wrong, if it's right, they would tell me if it's wrong, if it's right. But I would say that grammar, you should take it like step by step. First and most important thing, you have to listen a lot of things, like comprehensive input of what you really like to if you're going or no. I knew I was going to Morocco. I knew I was going to try surfing. So what would I do? I would just listen to things that are related to that. So I was listening to things. What do I do when I'm trying to buy a board for surfing? What do I do if I want to buy something to eat? So what that means, like going swimming, something like that. So basically those little phrases, that helped me already to get along with it in the beginning. And when with that works out, okay, now what does it mean? What is the past tense? Okay, now I can get to do this grammar. How is past tense built? So I can now get better at building sentences when I'm speaking to people. And future, or something like that. But not the beginning of, because otherwise you will have like, I don't know, like a math task. You're learning these rules and things, dynamics things, and then try to applying. But in language, it doesn't work like that, because you will see that people speak different, and you see, oh, why is it not like that? Why is it not like in my grammar book? So you question yourself. So you get more. You get demotivated, and you won't speak. You won't have fun, and at the end, you will just stagnate, and you won't learn, and you won't enjoy anything. So that's why I would say just speak. Like in Cuba, we dance. When people dance, we dance. We don't teach rules, and that's the thing where I see, for example, like you can compare dancing with learning. In Europe, people teach 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. In Cuba, we don't do that. People dance on the street.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a rule, and
That's all right,
you
yeah.
that doesn't work like that. Dancing is a dynamic. Dancing means actually you're actually interpreting the singer, what he's playing, and you're just using your feet and your body to interpret it and doing it, and this is dancing. So you're not doing, oh, now it's 1, now it's 2, okay, now 1. No.
The difficulty is that people here, we're not used to, or the majority of the people is not used to this kind of learning, and we just cannot interpret the music. There's no chance. If you don't give us the rules, then people won't dance. They will stand at the side and don't dance. And that's what's happened so much in Germany, and it's so sad. You really need to learn first how to interpret the music, how to incorporate it into your body, and then be able to listen to the song and dance on your own. And most people cannot do it. So it's really funny to go into a beginner class in Germany for dancing, and just hearing this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7.
It should have been.
It
should have been at the. No, because at the polyglot gathering, I did a workshop, Cuban, also dance. I didn't teach any 1, 2, 3. I just told them people dance.
Oh God, and big Germans were so desperate. Probably. Not only the Germans, but some people who just don't have that gene, that Latin American gene.
Maybe it should be forced out. I don't know how easy it is to get the gene forced out of people instead of, or is it like completely plateau? Because I feel like I'm thinking the opposite. It's like if you're giving way too much freedom in the way that you interpret things, you create your own language and nobody understands you. So what's up with that? Is that supposed? I don't know. That's dancing related. I don't think it's language related, but it's something. It's a possibility.
But I like the comparison. I get what you mean by comparing dancing and learning a language. Yeah.
So, and it's very interesting because we use dancing as a kind of way to learn multiple languages. But I've heard that there are other methods to kind of immerse yourself in learning languages that aren't like the actual phrases, like music, rap, or like sports. Like, have these elements in your life played a role into your language the language learning journey.
Yes, like for example, like for sports, I used to do American football. So when I was young, so of course we only speaking English and was LB Ludwigsburg, like in South. For French, I use mainly music. I like rap music because it is fast, and when you're able to understand, comprehensive, fast paced, you don't have time to think about grammar. You automatically put it and get it from the context. And what I was doing is basically I was just printing out the lyrics, and then I was just learning lyrics by heart, and then I was just basically rapping in front of the mirror myself. So I was getting into the mood of it. So basically, I was learning. I knew what the rapper was saying, the musician, and then also expressing how he's doing it, the intonation. And then also because rap music, hip hop, they have a lot of cultural and understanding, so that also helped me understand more about social things in France or like Congo, like Africa and French speaking countries. And when I was listening to soul music or like like more softer music, which is also good for beginners, um, because the words are very pronounced, very correct, very how to say, very slow. So you can get how things also intonate and how does it fit to the culture and as well. Um, it helps you a lot with intonation, and that's also one thing that also helped learning Chinese tones, because if you listen to Chinese songs, for example, like it also helps you out. Um, so you see that, for example, in tones that you need a sentence to really practice the tones as well, because no way of it. So
We had
music helps a lot.
we had an episode with our guest from Taiwan that recommends like going for the Taiwanese pop chart to kind of get a good way at exercise of the traditional Chinese, both in lyric form and speaking form. And it was very interesting to see how popular this method is. Because if I were myself, I wouldn't recommend people to learn Italian songs, especially specifically rap, for someone that is learning Italian, because there are so many references to things that don't technically make much sense unless you're being very Italian, that it's a lot harder to dissect things. And so, and especially newer rappers, of course, depends on the age of the rapper and the era, but newer rappers tend to have so many different connections to
Yeah.
American culture that there's very little to work with. You're just gonna start speaking like this very broken Italian slash English that if you know some Italian, it's pretty cool, but it's definitely not for beginners. So it's interesting. It's very interesting to see.
And if someone wanted to like start learning their third or fourth language today, what's one efficient method that you would recommend?
So first, I would find a tool like One Information. It can be one book, so it can be YouTube channel. So basically, if you're starting from zero, like to get the things, how to listen, how the how the language sounds, how do people speak, just listening a lot of things in the beginning, and yeah, just like get step by step. What are the main things, like how people greet each other, what are the things that you need to understand when you're meeting people and from their culture. So what are the famous expression that you have to know, hello, good morning, thanks, goodbye, all the things. And yeah, and having fun with it, but repeating itself so often as possible, and try to getting it right. And after you get us like a certain level of, you can get to find people from that country that speak that language, and just try to practice with someone that can help you out.
For example, on Tandem.
Yeah, for example, on Tandem. Yeah, Tandem is a great place to do that. For sure.
Exactly.
And it's something interesting because it kind of connects you to our last section on our program today, because like this is a great way if you want to pick up the fourth language. But once you start picking up, like how do you personally balance or maintaining the languages that you already speak, as well as adding in new ones? Because after like the fourth, the fifth, the seventh language, there's a lot of languages to keep track. So do you have some personal tips of maintaining and balancing all of them?
Yes, what I do is I like to watch, for example, things in native language and original language. And for example, I use my tools even at work. For example, I was using, Microsoft Office, Outlook, Teams. I changed the language, the system language. I changed to French. So everything was changed into French. At work, my Netflix was in French, my Google was in French. So basically, making sure, if you cannot go to the country to practice, then you pick the country to you. So, because if you're living in France, you you will see only thing in French, everything will be in French. So you do the same. So like there's one thing to see, to see the language. Okay, your brains know, okay, I'm on that language, I need to practice. Also, one thing is going to international events. So here in Düsseldorf and Cologne, we have things like called melting pot, social melting pot, where you can meet people from different countries, culture, and you can practice languages basically. Going to language cafes, also using Tandem to practice. What else? Also, one thing is that helping to speak to yourself.
Yeah. True.
So and also having your own routine, like when you wake up, think don't think in that language, think in that language you learn.
Yeah.
Listen to music, radio, reading newspapers. People don't read newspapers nowadays, so it's so bad, but you can buy a newspaper and read. That's a lot of things you can get from it. If you like a thing, for example, like okay, I'm interested into AI, learning AI stuff. So okay, of course in English, because AI is a very term that's very worldwide. But why not doing in French? Why not reading what does French society think about AI? Why not reading it in Mandarin Chinese? Why not reading it in Russian? So when you find something that interests you, when you know the thing that interests me anyway, so why not using the language anyway? So but also having friends, finding friends, people you can practice to with
Yes.
on regular basis. That's the most important thing.
That's one of the greatest things that I always say in these episodes is about the environment. If people around you are there to help you learn those languages, everything will be a lot easier. There's always so many people that are interested in learning languages, but they don't have the right environment to do so. Either they're people bringing it down or they don't have people around it that are as passionate as them. And that can bring a lot of problems. A lot of tasks that you made it sound a lot easier of like changing languages or getting resources in different languages sound easy at first, but if you are in a place that doesn't allow you to do so, it's simply not going to happen. So for every time, I always say in this episode that the environment is the most important part of learning languages. It always will be, no matter the level, no matter the language, no matter your position. The environment, finding people that can help you learn those languages is the key.
And wrapping up the episode, maybe with our last question here. So, if listeners took away one thing from your whole journey, like how you approach languages, accents, or even your own identity, what would you want it to be?
Let it flow and go with the flow, let it flow, and like Cuban says, take it easy, but it will get it. It will get it there. So this is a Cuban way of living, and that's how it get me here.
Let it flow.
Yeah.
I can already start channeling all of the flow of learning languages within me, and I think those are very, very. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, for like people when, for example, like dancing, when people try to dance salsa and they're stiff, they don't know what to do. The music is long. They don't actually doing what the teachers taught them to do. They won't do anything. But we think Cuban way, let it flow. Listen to the music and just do. Even if it's just a same step 1,000 times, but do it, because it's better doing the basics 1,000 times than doing nothing and staying there and hoping you will do some crazy move that it's not relevant.
it is a thing that a lot of people that learning languages do. Is like they it's a lot better to be consistently doing something that is small rather than trying to go super big and failing miserably. So this also can be applied not only to the world of dancing, but also to the world of language learning. And that's, I think, a very beautiful way to wrap up this episode of the Connected by Language podcast. Thank you so much, Guglielmo, for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I mean, if you have a place or a project that you're doing or somewhere where people can learn from your own journey, where would they be able to find you? This is the best time to talk if you have a project or a media channel, whatever works. It will be linked in the description below.
I mean, the moment I'm working with a friend. She has websites called Language for Music. You can find them on Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. And basically, we work together on, how to use.
Oh, we lost your sound, but you still
using.
Okay.
Can you
Yeah.
please repeat that, because halfway through it got a little bit
Yeah.
broken.
Sorry. So I'm working with a friend. She has a website called Language for Music, where she teaches people, using music to learn languages. And you can find her on Instagram, LinkedIn, and I also write articles about how music shaped me learning language. Yeah, so one follow that for.
I think that's a fantastic way to learn languages, and I'm also very excited to follow the page because I love just listening to music on its own, and it's always nice to learn
Nice.
about artists from all around the world. And I think it's going to be a fantastic place for people listening in. But again, thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Connected by Language podcast. Have you ever been to Cuba? Let us know in the comments below. It would be very lovely to know your experience there. And hey, if you're picking up the fourth language, tell us that too. You know, we have plenty of spaces for you to comment. But if you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe, and because that is the best way to support us and to be excited for the next channels. Who knows where we're going to go next? Who knows what's our next stop in this crazy journey? But until then, I've been your host, Michele. I've been joined by my co-host,
Michelle.
and I guess we'll see ya on the next episode of the Connected by Language podcast. So I guess we'll see ya.
Bye.
Bye.